first question today. Do you actually believe past life? What is the logic behind this reality of reliving soul? Well, first of all, it's not a matter of soul. Just briefly returning to a point I made yesterday, or the day before yesterday, which is that Buddhism is not a belief system kind of religion. So it doesn't expect you to believe in things and then tell you you can't be a Buddhist if you don't believe in this, or you're going to hell, or something like that. So it's not like a compulsory belief. You're a Buddhist, therefore you must believe in this and this and this. Especially in the case of things which are very difficult to gain any direct experience of. But the angle at which Buddhism approaches these things is to make a very clear distinction between what you know and what you believe. This is a huge confusion in the Western world. I see again and again and again of people say, it's true, I know it's true. So I say, well, how do you know it's true? Because it says so in my Bible or in my book, therefore it must be true. But that's not knowing in the sense that we would use that word in Buddhism. It's a belief, isn't it? When people say they know something, and they say that with great kind of emphasis, what they usually mean is they have an absolutely sort of bulletproof 100% faith in that. They have no doubts in that. And so they would use the word I know. So I know because it's in my book. Now you say, well, what proof do you have? Well, often the rationale is simply that I just wouldn't feel like this if it wasn't true. But that's not very logical, is it? In the sense that there are so many things in our life that I'm sure we've all had absolutely like 100% conviction in, and then we found out afterwards that it wasn't the case. Now, obvious example for many young Westerners is Santa Claus. I mean, I was absolutely convinced in the existence of Santa Claus when I was a small child. Quite a disappointment to find out that it wasn't really what I thought. But I'm using an example merely to point out that when you look in your heart and you feel you're absolutely convinced, yes, you read something in a book and you say yes, that's not knowing, that's believing. And these are two fundamentally different things. So when we talk about something outside of our experience, like past lives, then our beginning point is a very humble one. We begin with the point of, I don't actually know. Okay, then that's a point where we begin. But then from there we say, but I have certain beliefs. Like personally, I don't know. I don't have memory of past lives. I've met people who've told me past lives I'm supposed to have had, but I don't know whether or not that it was accurate or not. But I do have a very strong belief in rebirth, what's they say, an unshakable belief in rebirth, but that's not a knowledge of it. And so why do I have this strong belief in rebirth? Well, firstly, because of the teachings of the Buddha himself, which refer to this on many, many, many occasions, and the Buddha's teachings that I have been able to verify or to put to the test have all, over the last 30 years, every single one of them has proved to be correct. So that gives me a reasonable faith that in those areas of the Buddha's teaching which I have not yet penetrated, that there's a high likelihood that they're going to be true. So this is a trust or a faith or a conviction based on experience and based on my study and practice. Similarly, there have been for the past 2,500 years, there are many people in Thailand today, both monks, nuns, lay people, who do have the ability through their meditation experience to recollect past lives. Now, one of the reasons you won't hear about this too much is that monks, particularly forest monks, take the Vinaya, the Pravinaya very seriously, and they won't talk about these kinds of experiences with lay people. They're only allowed to talk about them with other monks. And one of the reasons for this is that it's kind of very exciting. If you know someone can remember past lives, or maybe can remember your past lives, or can read your mind and all these kind of things, you kind of lose the plot of what Buddhist practice is all about with this kind of fascinating stuff. There are also many cases, and these are well documented, of children in particular, usually in the age of 3, 4, 5 years old, and not only in Buddhist cultures but in non-Buddhist cultures, who have quite detailed memories of past lives. Professor Ian Stevenson, the University of Virginia, is the main scholar in this field, and has written a number of books where he's collected all his data on such children. One of his most well-known books is 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. So there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of information out there. And then there are cases of people who are able to recall past lives through hypnosis. So I would say that given the Buddhist teachings themselves, and the direct experience of meditators, spontaneous recollection of children throughout the world, and the hypnotic regression that's taken place throughout the world, these are all very strong evidence supporting the hypothesis of rebirth. We can't say it's an absolute proof, but I would contend that it's a hypothesis which is at least you could say a very reasonable one. After many years, I just recently came across an article detailing the sort of the conventional or conservative scientific response or reaction to Professor Stevenson's data. And basically there's nothing there. It's saying, well, look, if we accepted this, we'd have to throw out so many of our central scientific theories. It's not worth it. I mean, so it's not actually a critique of the evidence, but the critique is more that it would mean revising so many things that we take for granted already, that we're not willing to do that, which is not a very strong argument, certainly not what we may call a scientific argument. I'd just like to point out here that one of the most interesting, I'm not very scientifically minded, and I wasn't very good at science at school, but I have been over the years been interested in like cognitive science, brain science, this kind of thing. But probably one of the most interesting fields for me is the history of science, and how the role that science has played in different countries and different cultures, because scientific theories are constantly being revised. If you take the orthodox view, they're constantly being refined. So there's this idea that they're getting better all the time, but that's questionable in its